Hello, good evening, and welcome to the ThinkingSpot podcast. I am absolutely delighted to be here today with you all. And I'm running a series of podcasts over the next couple of months in aid of Mind. And I've been speaking to lots of wonderful, wonderful people who are just as passionate as me about mental health and well-being. So I am Krissi Carter, founder of ThinkingSpot Coaching and Results and Executive Coach. And today I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming Jo Silcock, who has done some research on post-pandemic children and how the pandemic and lockdowns has affected them. So welcome, Jo, to the podcast today. And it's just wonderful to be here with you today. So please, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Hello. So yeah, I'm Jo. And first of all, it's just a real honor to be speaking with you. And I just know that after meeting you on a PD day from work, that I just had to get to know you and do some collaboration with you. So it's been absolutely wonderful. So a little bit about me. I'm actually in my 9th year of teaching. So I teach in a primary school, predominantly year 3, so 7 and 6-year-olds. And I just really love my job. I love teaching the children. They make me smile every single day. I go in knowing that every day is an adventure and that it is true what they say, every day is a school day, because I learn from those children. I learn about myself. I learn about patience and compassion and how to be adaptive that I never thought I could be. And it's just been an absolutely incredible experience just to be able to go into a classroom every day and just be in awe of these children.
I know, and there's just so much, isn't there, that as adults we can learn from children. And I completely hear you when you say you need that patience, and every day is a school day because we're just constantly learning. And that's what I love about working with young people. People always think, oh, maybe the adults, you teach the children. Well, actually, they teach us a heck of a lot about ourselves as well, which makes it so fascinating. So you are a practicing teacher. I'm an ex-educator. I used to be in education. I was a head teacher for 7 years. So you are still a practicing teacher, and you work with predominantly 6 and 7-year-olds, and you did research on the side as well. You are amazing. You are just superhuman. So why did you decide to do this piece of research? What was that sort of fire in your belly that got you going and thought, right, okay, this is something I'm really passionate about and I want to look deeper into it?
Well, when I was on the course, I decided to do psychology and mental health and well-being just as a curiosity. I did it at college and I hadn't really looked at it since then. And I thought, you know what, with the way that the world is going, I want to make sure that as a teacher, I am able to provide these children with as much understanding and patience as I can, because everybody has got something going on in their lives. And to be able to deal with 30 children that have got such complex lives and emotional understanding, I wanted to make sure that as a teacher, I could be there for these children. And so when I was doing my research, I realized that there was so much about the effects of COVID as it was happening and how lockdown had affected lifestyles and families and teachers. But then as soon as we'd sort of come back into school and we'd done that year of easing ourselves back into it, all the research just suddenly just disappeared and stopped. And it was like, well, actually, no, these issues haven't gone away. These difficulties that families are facing, the fact that teachers are still overwhelmed, have not gone away. So where is the research and the look insight to what is going on? So I was like, do you know what, I'm going to do it.
Fantastic.
I will do it and I will find it. I will find out.
Yeah, and you know what? That is exactly right. Like Jo and I met at a conference that I was speaking at, and I'm so pleased that she came up to me at the end, because straight away when I spoke to her, I was like, right, okay, I need to keep in contact with this lady because she is doing the research or has completed the research that I'm really interested in. So I know from being a head teacher, working in schools, how different children and staff were after the pandemic. And just to make things even more complicated, I went on maternity leave for a little while. And my goodness, I was only away for just under 6 months. But it really hit me when I got back just how different things were. And like you, I've always been really curious about it.
Yeah.
And so now with the work that I do, I work with adults. But the way I see it is, let's help adults understand what trauma and stress is, because at the end of the day, we've all experienced some form of trauma and stress because of the pandemic. And it's only now that people like yourself are carrying out this research and showing us, look, this is a really real problem that loads of people are facing in education, in other sectors as well. One of the big things that they're talking about in education at the moment, for example, is behaviors of children are different. But actually, the behaviours of staff and adults is different as well. And attendance rates of children have, well, it's plummeted, hasn't it? But then if you look at the working environment, it's plummeted there too. So going back to your research, what did your findings tell you?
I find out that there's higher referral rates. They've gone up about between 50 and 53% since 2019. So that's basically doubled in the amount of mental health referral rates that we are giving for children. And there are just so many gaps in social skills because the children haven't had the social interactions that they need through play and through sharing. Even just asking a child, can you pass me the pencil? That wasn't there, because when they were in their homes isolated, there were 240 million children across 23 different countries that were just shut into lockdowns, and they were told they can't go outside, you can't do this, and then it created sort of this anxiety of going outside and interacting with people. So then when they've been put back into the environment and asking them to go and play football and to share, it's just created this gap of, well, I don't know how to socialize as such. So there's a massive big difference with that. And as you say, behavior has changed, and that could be due to the anxieties, because the children have seen the difficulties that their families have had to suffer through. They've gone through tremendous loss, some of them. They've gone through a lot of heartbreak and financial difficulties that, yes, parents have they've tried their best to shelter them from it, but their children are sponges. And even that, parents are amazing, and the parents I've worked with are absolutely fantastic. But I think even when I'm in the classroom and I've not had a good day, the children can probably sense that. And even though I'm putting on this big smile, it's just that aura, and they might not know what's going on, but it's still there. And children, it can take up to 10 years for them to understand emotional, how to help themselves emotionally and intellectually to understand what's going on. So they're reacting like this, but what's the reason behind it? And for those children, it must have been quite scary. And for some of them, it was half of their life. If they were the children that I had when we went into lockdown was 6. So, and then they went in for 2 years. That's like a quarter of their life. Those were in reception. That's more or less half of their life that they spent in lockdown. For adults, it was scary for 2 years, but for half of your life spent in lockdown, that's a lot.
And I completely agree with you. Children are sponges, and they can pick up on the tiniest little signs. And if you've got parents who are, they're just amazing. Now I'm a parent myself. I've got a 2-year-old. I completely get it. Look, just how difficult it is to be a parent. And my daughter's 2.5 nearly, and just her development in those 2.5 years is just incredible. She's gone from this, I don't mean this in a nasty way, a blob that doesn't really do much except for drink milk and cry and, needs nappy changing, to now she's having proper conversations and interacting and, colouring in and things like that in just 2.5 years. Now, that is the time that we were in lockdown. And if these young people didn't have those opportunities, I mean, she was very lucky. She went to nursery, and, you know, her nursery is absolutely fantastic. And they do so much work with her that I just wouldn't even think of doing at home, because I'm not trained in early years. And I can see just how much she gets from that. But for children who were that age and older, who didn't have that opportunity, that's quite shocking when you think about it, just how much development they have lost out on. And, you know, when you talk about, you know, the brain development as well, you know, your prefrontal cortex that, you know, helps with the rational thought and logical thoughts, you know, that doesn't develop until you're about 25, maybe all the way up to 30. So we're expecting young people to have these rational skill, you know, thinking skills, where they've got brains that are not yet mature, and they can't do that yet because they're not there. But you throw in a pandemic and lockdowns as well, it just makes it even more complicated. And now I think we're seeing the outcome of that.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's only when they get to 7 and 11-year-olds that they actually start to understand logic,
right,
and create meaning to it. And then, as you say, it's by the average age for a woman is 32 for maturity.
right.
So for a child to be able to understand why, you know, the world has gone into big isolation and we can only go one person into a supermarket, that must have been very unusual and very strange. But they were so resilient, and I think that they handled it so well, considering that there is that transition. It was the transitioning back into this, you know, full culture and going in. And that's where I think the anxiety and worries just suddenly emerge, because they've been told, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. And then it is relearning things. You're rewiring your brain,
Of course,
to go back into it. And that's where the children are then having to, they're using other means to express their emotions, because they haven't had the opportunity maybe to experience how to do it. And that's where challenging behavior can come out, and, you know, anger or self-harm or eating disorders, especially in the secondary school that we heard. And that's just really sad. And you just want to just, you know, shelter these children and like give them a little cocoon of hope and love, and say it's going to be okay. And you honestly, my heart just goes out to all these children.
I can just tell from, you know, the passion in your voice, just how much this means to you. And I think for adults, it was really difficult to come out of lockdown, because it was almost like overnight we were expected to be normal, you know, and go back to the ways of living that we did pre-pandemic. And actually a lot had gone on through the pandemic, and it's affected people in ways that I don't think they even realize it's affected them. So there's a lot of people who are carrying, my personal opinion, a lot of trauma and a lot of stress. And the 21st century is great with distractions, isn't it? We can always distract ourselves so we don't explore those emotions, that trauma and that stress. And what happens is it sort of builds up until it, you know, eventually overflows. And I think we're starting to see the impact of, you know, these cups overflowing at the moment with the stress and the trauma. And unless something is done and there's more understanding around it, and we do something drastic, very different, this issue is just going to get worse and worse and worse, which is why it's so important that people like yourself do carry out research like this, so that we can perhaps find ways that will support younger, not just young people, but adults as well.
It's the families that need
And
it.
families, absolutely. And on top of the pandemic, we've also got the cost of living crisis at the moment. And, you know, families are amazing. They will do absolutely everything and go to any lengths, and schools do as well, to make sure that their children have everything they need. But again, going back to what you were saying before, young people can sense that. They can feel the anxiety in adults. And that then impacts, and like you say, their way of communicating, perhaps our behaviors that can be seen as undesirable, shall we say, but it is that form of communication, and they don't know how else to communicate, especially the little ones.
Yeah. And it's just explaining to those children that actually these emotions that they are feeling, they are normal. It is
Yes.
okay to feel anxious, and it is okay to get angry and frustrated, because I get angry and frustrated, but I've as an adult and are still learning strategies to help me with that. And as a teacher, and I know that all the participants that I spoke to, they want the support and the techniques to be able to support these children, because we became teachers like yourself. We did it because that is our passion. You don't go into teaching if because you
Certainly
don't
don't.
want to do it. Yeah. You do it because you realize that the future generation have got amazing, incredible minds, and we are here to support them on that journey, whether it be a year that we're with them, or we get them for 4 to 5 years in secondary school. We want to help them on that journey and build those milestones, and being able to provide them with the strategies just to help them emotionally as well as academically
Mm,
is that's what we're here for. But we just need the strategies and the money and the time to be able to implement that,
yeah. So in terms
because
of
they're
your
just
research then, so what did you find with primary school age students, pupils, I should say?
Mhm.
What sort of things did you find in your research with that?
They had their resilience wasn't as good as it was beforehand, because they were very quick at giving up. Like
Mm,
they would see something and they'd be like, no, I'm not feeling this now. And it's sort of like a panic sets in.
yeah.
And it's like, if I don't try, I'm not going to get hurt by this. I'm not going to be a failure because I haven't tried. And they get into that mindset of, I think one of the participants said to me, if I don't try, then I won't fail, because I don't have to do it. So if I tell myself no, I'm not going to feel that shame
Yeah.
of not being able to do it. And that's just really sad. And I just was like, oh, and that's where we come in, and we're like, okay, we can do this, and we do it in little bits, and you have interventions. We also found that there was a lot of friendship difficulties. And that's because around the time of the pandemic, that would have been when they should have been in nursery or year
Yeah.
one. And that's a lot of the interactions of sharing and play. Got more um, sort of not violence, I'd say, but more anger issues are coming out
Yeah.
within primary. And it's the frustration, because they hadn't learned the strategies to understand when they're frustrated. So even if they've got like in a spelling test, for example,
Yeah.
they know what it should be spelt like, but they just can't write it down, and it's just that's it then,
Yeah.
eruption. And it's like, it's okay, we can work together to use phonics to sound it out. But it's once they hit that peak, sometimes we just need to move away, say it's
Mm,
okay, let's go and sort this out first.
yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about how we're feeling,
Yeah.
and just know I understand your frustration, and
Mm,
it's okay, but how are we going to solve this now? What can I do to help you?
yeah.
And then it's getting them to verbalize it, because the more they verbalize it, the more they're able to understand it.
Of course, yes, because
Yeah.
verbalizing helps you process
Yeah.
what's going
Yeah.
on in your head. And that's the same for adults as well. So
Yeah.
I guess with what you're saying is it's almost like you're breaking it right back down to a level where you're helping the child to regulate their emotions. Because
Yes.
like you say,
Yeah.
all emotions are okay. And
Yeah.
even adults don't realize that. All emotions make us human. There's no bad
Yeah.
emotions, there's no good emotions. We just have emotions. And it's just the body and the mind's way of reacting to something when
Yeah.
you're put in a certain situation. So if there's fear, well, you need to have that fear, because if
Yeah.
there's danger or a perceived threat coming along, you need to know that that is dangerous, so you don't end up doing something that might hurt you.
Yeah.
So these are all natural responses that we have. But I think, it's so important that for us as adults to be able to regulate our own emotions, so that,
Yeah.
like you do in your school, help the children to regulate their
Yeah.
emotions as well. Now, I was reading something about connection,
Mhm.
when it comes to, children or adults and that sense of belonging.
Yeah.
What's your view on connection and belonging at the moment?
Um, I believe there is such a huge fundamental aspect if a child has a secure sense of belonging, then they are able to create, positive understanding of mental health and their resilience, and they're able to create, positive connections. If you have a sense of belonging, you feel valued,
Yeah.
and that value creates confidence and builds your self-esteem. If you do not feel that you belong, or you feel that you are disappointing somebody or you're not good enough, then that is where you can feel like you're going into yourself. Everybody's felt it, where we feel I have not made people proud,
Yeah.
and it's just, you feel like your world's going to fall apart and you just want to make everybody happy. And for these children, you can see it on their faces. They want to make their teachers proud. They want to make their parents proud. They run outside and they're showing them their work. That's that sense of belonging, and we want to celebrate it. And as professionals, we can do that by having that more communication with parents, because there was so many elements in the research where the participants were saying that we need more time with families and parents to be able to create that and to support each other.
Yeah.
And to not create like a divide. This is school, that is home. Let's interlink it. And online learning has actually, probably from COVID, created that, because there's more online platforms where they are able to do work online and share it. And I think that's creating more of a sense of belonging and connection to celebrate these young children and their achievements.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, goodness, I think if you speak to any teacher, they will say that time is such an issue, because it is a really high pressured job and the stakes are just so high. The kids get one shot at it, and it has to be right. It has to be the best it possibly can be for children. And, just a quick look on social media, for example, there's people saying, look, we want to do our best at the moment, but things are just so difficult. We need the funding. I mean, if you try and contact mental health services, it's not the fault of anybody who's working in mental health, of course.
No.
They're just like educators are doing the best that they can do with the resources that they have. But you hear of stories of children self-harming, for example, because they haven't reached that threshold, which is where they've done some real damage to themselves, that they're on a waiting list for 18 months, I think I was reading. And that is just shocking, because goodness knows how poor their mental health is going to be from now until 18 months time, if they're already in that state of hurting themselves and self-harming to try and, I guess, alleviate the pain and trauma or stress that they're feeling inside. So what strategies, like if we were in a perfect world and we have all the money and all the time that we could possibly ever want, to make sure that every child got exactly what they needed and could excel, and I don't want to use the word recover, but let's just say to move forward from the effects of the pandemic and the lockdown, what sorts of things would you recommend or think would really support and help them?
The government really need to start looking at the curriculum personally. I think we need to start re-looking at including more well-being aspects into it. And maybe because there's so much pressure on these children to learn specific things by a certain age. And I don't remember learning some of these things when I was at school. And I think these children have got too much pressure. And I think we just need to give them the time to learn and adapt as individuals. I think giving more support in class, if we can, have more LSAs, learning support assistants in class, that would be absolutely amazing, because they are the most valuable aspects in my classroom. Having them to support children, or so I can take out a group, that would be amazing. Providing schools with more training where we are taught strategies of how to do it. We get loads and loads of training on what mental health is, or what eating disorders are, but I want to know, how can I help these children? give me the strategies, come in and show me what to do, support me with it. And I just think it's just having that more support for families faster outside of school, because it's not just the schools, it is also the other services such as psychologists, mental health, doctors,
services.
Yeah, exactly. They need to shorten those waiting lists, because I think I've one of my participants said that we've got to, what was it? It was discussing doesn't prevent, but understanding does.
Yeah.
And better progress and faster support creates happier families.
Yeah.
Because they're not waiting, they're not having to keep struggling by themselves, and then we can get in quicker with them, and it's all a community.
Yeah.
It's not, you have to go to the GP, it's nothing to do with us. We will work together.
Yeah.
Because we are not, we are given quite a big overview. Yes, we are teachers.
Yeah.
But we are also being used as counsellors and psychologists and therapists at the moment. And we wouldn't change that for the world. A lot of my, all the participants said we would always give every moment of our time that we can to everybody to help them.
Yeah.
But there's only so much we can do on our own. And I think having that community spirit, that would be like the perfect world.
And I think the vast majority of people working in education, not just teachers, like you say, the learning support assistants or teaching assistants or the pastoral teams, or just anybody really who works in education, whether you're a teaching member of staff or a support member of staff, I don't think I've ever really met anybody who hasn't got the best interests of the children at heart. They really, really want to do anything they possibly can. But I completely hear, the frustration there, because I remember some students who I used to work with, you would say, right, okay, go to your GP because maybe they'll get you a CAMS appointment quicker. And then they would send them back to us and say, no, the school has to do the referral. And then you try and do the referral. And then they'd say, no, it has to go through the GP. And so you just feel like you're being passed from.
It's a tennis match, isn't it?
It really, really is. And so by the time, the student has gone to the GP and they've got back to us, and then we contact CAMS and whatever services out there, a whole month has gone by. And goodness knows, what happens in a month. In education, a month is a really long period of time. A huge amount can happen in a month. And it's just not good enough that we can't access those services quickly enough. But the thing is, everybody is so stretched at the moment, and that's why where we're at. So if there was one message that you could get out there to all of our listeners, the most important thing that you found when you were doing your research, what would that one message be?
Oh, there's just so much. I just think
I'm putting you on
that I could go on forever. I just think that just keep showing kindness to the teachers and to the pupils and to families. And just, if you're ever feeling overwhelmed, take the time and realize that there is so much going on, and we are all here together to look after one another. And I think that's what all of the participants said were, we are here because we care, and we will continue to do our jobs because we care.
And I think that kindness message is so important. And we know families, you're going to be frustrated from time to time, but everybody working in education is trying their hardest to provide the best for your children and for you as families as well. So I think that's a wonderful message for us to end on. Thank you so much, Jo, for being with me today and sharing your research and the findings. If anybody wants to get hold of you to find out more, how can they contact you?
I will be providing you with an email address soon. I'll be creating one especially for this.
Oh, fantastic. Right, okay, everybody. So you need to follow me on Twitter at Krissi Carter, or my company, ThinkingSpot Coaching. On Twitter, it's ThinkingSpot Co. I'm also on Instagram, on TikTok, and on LinkedIn as well. I think that's all of the social media platforms. And I'll make sure that once Jo has created that email address, that you all know exactly what it is. Now, remember that we are running these podcasts in aid of mind for the 1 in 4 people who will suffer from a mental health illness every single year. I'm hoping to raise £400. So if you can donate any money at all, doesn't matter how small, I would be so, so grateful, because they provide some excellent advice and some excellent support. So once again, Jo, thank you so much for being with me today. And
Thank you.
I look forward to hearing about more of your research and what you're doing in schools. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.